In 1459, Fra Mauro, the Italian monk and cartographer, drafted a world map for the seafaring nations of the time, Portugal and Venice. This was based on the accounts of the journeys of his contemporary legendary Italian merchant and traveller Nicola da Conti, plus inputs from the book of the travel of the Marco Polo. Arab resources and recent development in Portuguese exploration were also incorporated. Accordingly, the Portuguese exploration advanced in the east mainly on this line, pushing southward in west coast of Africa to round it. This map was one of the prized possessions of the Portuguese crown, which they proudly hung on the wall of São Jorge Castle at Lisbon until 1494, when the exploration of Columbus redefined the concept based on westward exploration in Atlantic for the journey to east. Earlier in 1474, Toscanelli, another Italian cartographer, dispatched a map to his Portuguese friend Fernão Martins, the priest of Lisbon Cathedral, detailing a scheme of sailing westward to reach the spice land of Asia, and the same was presented to Portuguese crown with a cold response. Further, Columbus, who was residing in Lisbon, also advocated and proposed a westward exploration to the east based on Toscanelli map, but was again rejected by the expert committee as they found errors in calculation of Earth's circumference. Disappointed, Columbus left Portugal to explore it with other European rulers. And with a lot of persuasion, he was able to convince Castile, the modern-day Spain, to sponsor the voyage and surprise the Portuguese when, due to a storm, he landed at Lisbon port in March 1493 during his return sea voyage after discovering the east, what he believed that time Cipango, that is Japan. This was a very low time for Portuguese crown. However, despite the Fra Mauro flawed concept of a smaller Africa and the Columbus setback, the Portuguese plan for east went ahead to encircle Africa for voyaging to east, encouraged by Bartholomew Dias Cape rounding in December 1488, plus the inputs received from Covilla Espines. Accordingly, an ambitious direct sea voyage to India, the India Plan, was formed up and initiated by King João II. But it took a decade to commence the unprecedented sea voyage. Today it is difficult to comprehend the reasons for the delay due to the secretive nature of the Portuguese crown, who were deeply involved in such ventures. Possibly the untimely death of the Crown Prince João Infante in a horse riding accident, followed by the death of King João II in 1495, could be one of the main reasons. King Manuel I, the Fortunate, came to power by sheer stroke of luck, as the outgoing king had left with no legal successor son. Initially, the king was busy in the more pressing issue of marrying Isabella, the heiress of Castile and Aragon, to combine it with the Portugal. But there was a high price set for that. Portugal had to expel or convert all Jews, what they had done in Castile. The fiasco of Jews' expulsion had completely changed the ground scenario at Lisbon, and possibly one of the causes in delaying the Indian sea voyage. But lately, the King Manuel I recognized the importance of the India Plan and became a patron in the daunting task of the preparation of such a long, risky and uncertain journey. There were two formidable challenges to be addressed properly for the journey. First and foremost was the construction of ships which can withstand 3 years of treacherous sea journey with all men and materials. The second was to find the leader who can lead and steer ahead the big team in such a difficult journey, facing not only the unpredictable and unknown ocean, but also from time to time have to deal with the local obstacles and opposition's powers in the course of a very long journey. Further, he should be firm and indomitable to deal not only with external forces but the internal rebellion and mutiny which was quite common in such long, strenuous sea voyages. Lisbon had a privileged geostrategic location in trade between the North-South Europe and North-South Atlantic. Earlier during Moorish time, it was a majestic city with markets of luxury goods having firm trading contact with Muslims Al-Andalus and Maghreb and almost nil contact with Christian world. But after its Christian seizure and conquest in 1147 by the perfect king Henrik, its trade was completely halted. Therefore, post-conquest Christian Lisbon had to work hard to become an attractive city for foreign merchants. The situation changed in 1249 when King Alfonso III moved the royal court to Lisbon after conquering the western Gharab of Muslims Al-Andalus. King Denis took a step further by establishing mercantile institutions and promoting shipbuilding at Lisbon. He also constituted an armada under the supervision of the Genoese admiral Emmanuel Passango. In 1289, the first Portuguese university was founded here, and by the end of the 15th century, it was Iberia's largest and one of the top commercial cities of Europe. Its merchants were found in all places like Pisa, Valencia, Seville, London, Antwerp, etc., whereas the traders from Venice, Genoa, and Barcelona were regular visitors here. Lisbon articulation with the international ports required ships for which King Fernando allowed free wood from royal forest and exempted the tax on importing iron, bombards, gunpowder, and other weaponry to build vessels above 100 tons. The Lisbon shipbuilding industry employed more than 300 shipwrights and caulkers, and Lisbon riverfront was teeming with specialized workers, with hundreds working in its harbour and warehouses. It was also producing state-of-the-art cartography, nautical charts, techniques, and maritime instruments due to their pioneering role in overseas expansions. Its maritime economy had very few comparisons in the contemporary world. Accordingly, for the India voyage, the armada consists of 4 vessels: Sao Gabriel, the flagship, Sao Rafael, Berrio, and the store ship were constructed and fitted out at Lisbon's world-class shipbuilding workshops. The Berrio was a small vessel of 50 tons for swift action and was named Sao Miguel, but often called by her name of her former owner and the pilot Berrio, from whom she was purchased and refitted. The store ship was of a considerable size of 200 tons and was purchased from a ship owner of Lisbon. The Sao Gabriel and Sao Rafael were the swift Portuguese now called carracks of around 150 tons, especially built for the voyage under the supervision of Bartolomeu Dias, the captain of the last voyage. The ships were flat-bottomed with a square stern and bluff bow, and formidable castles rose fore and aft, having a deep waist between them. The captain was lodged in the castle rising upon the quarter-deck, with the officers accommodated in the room below this and in the forecastle, while the man had living quarters beneath the gang boards which ran along the topside from castle to castle. There were 3 masts and bowsprit. The main mast rose to a height of 110 feet above the keel and flew with the royal standard at its head. The sails were square with the exception of that of mizzen, which was triangular. When spread, they presented around 4,000 square feet of canvas to the wind. The cross of the Order of Christ was painted on each sail. The armament consists of 20 guns made of wrought iron staves held together by hoops and mounted on fork props. The anchors, 2 in number, were of iron. Amidship there was a long boat in addition to a yacht. The hold was divided into 3 compartments: a midship for the water barrels, aft for the powder magazine, arms and ammunition, including iron and stone balls, and the forward compartment was used for the storage of requisites, including spear sails and spear anchor. The lower deck was divided into three compartments, two of which were set apart for provisions, presents, and articles of barter. The astronomical instruments were provided by Abraham Jakut of Salamanca, the celebrated astronomer of his time, who after exile of all Jews from Castile was settled in Lisbon and unfortunately facing again the exile or conversion acts in the changed political scenario due to the marriage settlement of King Manuel with Isabella of Castile. These instruments included a large wooden astrolabe, smaller astrolabes of metal, and in all probability also quadrants. They were accompanied by a copy of Jakut's Almand Saracen, translated from Hebrew to Latin by his Jew pupil Jos Vigino, the court physician and the scientist. These tables enabled the navigator to calculate his latitude by observing the altitudes of the sun. There was of course a sufficient supply of compasses, sounding leads and hourglasses. It is also possible that Vasco was already provided with an equinautical compass for determining the time of high water at the ports he visited. This instrument consisted of a combination of a sundial with a magnetic needle. It is understood that Vasco enjoyed the advantage of being trained by the learned Hebrew Abraham Jacuto.